Hello, this is Tim. We're reading from Lost Christianities and we're reading about the Gnostics. Now, I find the Gnostics very interesting because they're dealing with a major issue, and it's why do human beings suffer? And we see it's a lot of suffering. Some suffering we can explain, some we can't. So let's finish, or let's continue to read through. Like the Gnostics, Middle Platonists thought that there was an ultimate deity far removed from anything we could think or imagine, completely ineffable, i.e., words cannot describe this God, even the loftiest words we can muster. Absolutely perfect, totally removed from this world and its categories. He is complete and eternal within himself, not in relation to something else, not limited by space or time, and not intrinsically connected with anything in space and time. You cannot say that he is great because that would mean that he participates in something other than himself, called greatness. You can't really say that he is good for the same reason. He's not big because that would imply he has size. I like you notice they always refer to him as he, so it should be it, not he. But like Gnostics, the Middle Platonists were obsessed with understanding how this material world would come into being. If in the beginning the only thing that existed was this self-existent perfect one, they developed mythological systems to explain how it happened. These myths did not suggest that the one God decided to create the world. Instead, they maintained that from this one there emanated a bewildering series of other divine beings, spilling outward like water from a fountain, so that between the one true spirit and this material world, there were large numbers of various kinds of divine intermediaries, separating us from that one by an unbridgeable chasm. These Middle Platonists were especially enthralled with Plato's dialogue, the Timaeus, in which Plato himself describes the creation of the material world from the world of non-matter. It is interesting that one of the most philosophically astute Jews of the first century, Philo of Alexandria, wrote a commentary on the book of Genesis, in which he tried to show that, when properly understood, Moses stood in direct continuity with Plato. Philo himself can understand as a Middle Platonist, taking the Middle Platonic notions of the one supreme spiritual God and the realm of divine intermediaries between the God and this world, and apply them to his interpretation of Scripture. Maybe Gnostics stood in the intellectual line, deriving from understanding of the world from Middle Platonism in light of transformation of a traditional view of Judaism, driven by the failure of apocalyptic hopes to materialize. The Christian from the Gnosticism then would have been influenced by the Christian claims about Christ as the one through whom salvation comes, the one who reveals the truth, the one who comes from God above to us below. This, then, is at least one way of understanding where the puzzling worldview of early Christian Gnosticism came from. The sources of our knowledge of Gnosticism. What more precisely was the Gnostic view? One of the difficulties in summarizing it has to do with the ancient sources that are available. For centuries, in fact, all the time prior to discovery of original Gnostic documents, our only sources of information about Gnosticism were the writings of the Orthodox and Proto-Orthodox church fathers who opposed it. Writers like Irenaeus, Bishop of Lyons, who around 180 CE composed a 5-volume work, Refutation and Overthrow of Gnosis, falsely so-called, usually simply called, Against Heresies. Tertullian of Carthage, who about 20 years later wrote a number of treatises against various heretics, and his contemporary Hippolytus of Rome, whose own work, Refutation of All Heresies, was itself discovered only in the 19th century. These writers give full, sometimes interminable descriptions of the Gnosticism, or of Gnosticism, but they have nothing good to say about it. Gnostics are consistently ridiculed for espousing absurd and absurdly complex myths, for corrupting the clear teachings of Scripture, clear that is to the proto-Orthodox, for espousing self-contradictory views, for encouraging wild and licentious activities that reveal their true colors as reprobates and deviants from the truth. So, as you see, whenever you have a teaching, you're going to have critics. Nothing wrong with that. But sometimes it's difficult to only judge people by the critics. And a lot of times when it comes to these teachings, what people will do is destroy them. So you'll try to leave writings and people will destroy it. Hopefully the internet solves that, because there's so much stuff on the internet. You really have to work hard to dig and find every aspect of a teaching and destroy it. And the people who espouse it and use it. So many bloggers, so many websites, just so much. So that's a good thing. Another plus for the internet. Until next time, I want to thank you for supporting me. Take care of your mind, take care of your body, and please, above all, be safe, be safe, be safe.